Welcome to the Financial Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Todd Romer. We started this podcast for two specific reasons. Number one, to inspire you to start a side hustle and make some extra income. Or perhaps take that side hustle and turn it into a full-time business, like some of our guests have done already. The second reason we started the podcast is because we're big fans of credit unions, and we have worked with credit unions around the country to help them drive awareness and new membership growth amongst younger generations. Frankly, with a credit union, you can do a lot of what we teach about money the Financial Rebellion way. So let's get into this episode of Financial Rebellion. Welcome to Financial Rebellion. I'm your host, Todd Romer. Got a special guest coming in to us from Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, correct, Luke?
Actually, Traverse City, northern Michigan now.
You know what? I always think Grand Rapids. Why do I go to Grand Rapids? Traverse City, Michigan. It's March the 2nd, 2026. I'd like to welcome to the podcast. This is going to be great, folks, listeners and viewers. This is going to be a very, very fun podcast with Luke Hesler. Welcome to Financial Rebellion, Luke.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Excited to be here.
So before we get into some questions of your business, which I'm excited to hear about it, ACE branding, icebreaker, give our viewers and listeners, give us your dumbest money move and your smartest money move. So two answers that you made when you were younger. I mean, you look super young and you are young. How old are you? 29, 30?
I'm 33. I got the baby face.
33. Okay. Well, that's what you do, but that's to your credit, because when you're 80, people are going to be like, wait, you're 53, right?
Yeah, right.
So tell us your dumbest and smartest money move that you made in your 20s or as recent as yesterday.
Yeah. So, how much time you got? I got a lot of things I could share.
Right.
I'll say this. I'll put it at two of them, actually. So I think my number one dumbest money move was saying no to Bitcoin when it was first given to me. I had a friend come up to me in 2014, and he told me to buy Bitcoin, and I told him that he needed to invest his time into something that was actually going to be here a decade from now. And so that was quite a dumb decision. So that's the dumbest investing decision I've made. The dumbest spending decision that I've made was probably when I was, let's see here, I think I was 19 years old, and I was making about $5,000 a month from a direct selling company, and I decided to buy a $72,000 car when I had less than $1,000 in my bank account. That wasn't a very smart move, and so that's probably the dumbest one that I really made, looking back on things.
It's awesome. There's so many people with the Bitcoin one, right? All right. Yeah. What's your best money move that you've made in the past or as recent as yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, actually, the other side of it, probably getting back into Bitcoin and crypto in 2017. I missed that wave that first time, but then was pretty bullish, when it came back around. And so I was pretty aggressively investing in that during that time.
That's great. That's great. And I know there's so many worse money. We all have multiple money, stupid decisions and multiple good money, but it's hard to get one. Yeah. Well, you're not. That's fantastic. We do talk about crypto and stocks. That's a big deal. Investing with Financial Rebellion newsletter, the podcast. There's no question that's a pathway to create significant wealth over time. Okay, your business. Yeah. I love starting with you because I know. So I met Luke. I met you, Luke, when you were, I'm guessing, 18 years old.
Yeah,
we're going back about a decade. And my son, Jack, at the time, also joined that direct selling company called Vimma, along with you and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people around the country. And I remember when he said hey, Mom and Dad, I'd like to look at getting into this company. And I said to him and his mom as well, it's like, if you, quote, fail, which whatever, you're going to learn so much that's going to take you places you have no idea. And we kind of knew it, but we wanted him to experience it. So before I get into what you're doing now with ACE branding, which I think sounds fantastic, I know everybody likes to hear stories of how you got to where you are. So give us some of that beginning with that company when you were in your late teens.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'll say credit to you, for having that perspective as a parent. Not a lot of people would have had that perspective, I think. So my parents, amazing people. I'm super blessed to have incredible parents. But they both, kind of grew up in the traditional education space. So my dad is a doctor, so I was always told the smartest people in the world make the most money. So you go to high school, good grades, go to college, get good grades, resume, apply for a job, work 40 hours a week, 40 years of your life, and retire on 40% of your income. And that's life, But so that's what I thought, I was supposed to go out there and do. But my paradigm was shattered when I met someone who was 25 years old, who had no college degree. He was a college dropout. This is in 2013. And he was making over $40,000 a month through this, direct selling affiliate marketing thing on the internet. And so I've just always have had the belief in my life that, whatever's been done can be duplicated. I'm like, if he can do it, I could do something like this as well. And so I decided to run at it, and I pitched my parents on it, and I'm pretty persistent, when I really want something. And so I think they kind of knew I wasn't going to take no as an answer, but they ended up saying yes to me by giving me a loan actually to get started, to teach me a lesson that these things don't work. So a little bit of a different frame than you had there with Jack. But that also was some fuel to me to like really make this thing work. And, I like to say that I failed forward. I had probably 6 months where I just fell flat on my face and just, really had nothing to show for it at all, but after figuring out what didn't work enough times, I eventually figured out what did work. And a lot of that had to do with, leadership, with sales, with marketing, and I developed skills, and through those skills, I was able to apply it to grow that business, teach other people how to go and do it. And it really blew up. By the time I was 23, we had over 10,000 affiliates on the team across 50 states, 20 different countries. And it was a pretty incredible experience, and really did serve as the foundation, I would say, of my entrepreneurship education that I take into my life today, and will take for the rest of my life forever, and hopefully pass on to my children one day, frankly.
Isn't that the truth? You had no idea what you were doing. I mean, you did, but you know what I'm talking about. You had no real idea what was happening, especially in the area of presenting in front of two people to 200 to 2,000 people, which you did.
Yeah.
And then, that's you broke barriers of fear. You didn't even know you were fearful, probably. You just did it. But, tell us. So from there, I know that things went south, if you will, but
Yeah.
then you moved on, and kind of where were you on wow, this business is over. What do I do next?
Yeah, well, that was a big moment for me, because I frankly thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life. And then you just wake up one day and that, business went out of business, and it was just disappeared, and it's not there anymore. And it was such an interesting experience for me as a 23-year-old, because so much of my identity was tied into this. And so it wasn't just kind of like a business failure, but it made me like reshape and re-question who I was as a person and all of these things. And so, I had to go through that and re-answer those questions. And one thing that I learned through it was just, again, like, you can take away the business opportunity, but you can't take away the relationships. You can't take away the character that it built. You can't take away the skills, that were developed. And the big lesson I learned, frankly, from that with me was that, okay, instead of being an affiliate for someone else's business, I want to start my own business. And so in 2017, I took a lot of the skills that I developed in that business, again, sales, marketing, a lot of it in the realm of social media, because this was right when Instagram was really getting hot, and I saw that was going to be kind of another big trend. And I started my first, social media agency in 2017. And that was kind of like what brought me down the path of like full on entrepreneurship, where I wasn't necessarily an affiliate of someone else's business, but now, I was truly, had everything, was mine. And that was another learning lesson, because now, instead of just having to learn, leadership, sales, and marketing, which I do think are the foundational skills for any business, you also have to learn, accounting, and you have to learn the legal side of things, and you have to learn, all these other aspects of business that were there. And there's a learning, curve to that as well. But at the end of the day, if you can't sell and bring people in, or market and get leads and sell them and get them in the door, you can't really do anything. And then the other side that I've learned is that every business is a people business. And that was the big thing that I learned in that first opportunity, was how to grow people and build people, and I learned a principle there that if you build the people will build the business. And I've taken that into everything I've done, since then. And it's been extremely helpful for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love the people piece of what you said there. It is. You develop relationships. My other son, Luke, who's also named like you, he also was part of that business along with his brother, Jack, for a while. Jack just took it a little farther and said the same thing, that you have no idea that when you're speaking to these smaller groups, you're just developing confidence and courage. You noted that when this was all kind of spiraling down, you said, wait a minute, I have created some skill sets. Let's take this to the next place, which is social media. Business, helping people use social media with their businesses. And then you moved forward. So let's talk more now of where you're at. By the way, you're married. You have a daughter that's 3, I believe, correct?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
How fun is that? So you're wearing multiple hats: business owner, husband, father, all great hats, by the way, right?
Agreed.
And now you've got something else going. So I looked on your LinkedIn, Ace Branding. Tell us about what Ace Branding is. And you mentioned the difference between sales and branding. So speak a little bit to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ace Branding is a digital PR firm. So our mission is to serve those who serve others. So we're looking for impact-driven thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and businesses, and we want to amplify their voice through digital PR, primarily through press features. So getting them in publications like a Forbes, USA Today, NASDAQ. We do podcast tours. We'll become guests on various podcasts, TV appearances, social media growth, things like this. And so our mission again is we really want to go find people who have a story to tell, and just they don't have the voice yet. They don't know how to go and get it out there yet, and we want to be able to go and help them do that. And so you mentioned the difference between sales and branding. Another big distinction that people aren't fully aware of usually is the distinction between like marketing and branding, or PR. And so the concept and the way that we kind of frame it is that if you think of like an acquisition channel, think of it as like the 3 C's. So you have contact, consideration, conversion. The contact is when like people learn that you exist, right? So people learn that your business exists. You make contact with a potential customer of your business. Then they move into the consideration phase, which is essentially where they are evaluating you. They will, look you up likely in one of 3 places. They'll go on social, so they'll look you up on social media. They'll go on search, so they'll Google you. And nowadays, and it's becoming more common, is they'll look you up on AI. So they go to ChatGPT or Gemini and ask about you. And then what happens is, based off of the information that they get, they then judge you essentially. And the principle there is that digital perception influences physical reality. And we've all seen this when trying to choose a place to go to eat. You have 2 different restaurants and they're both Mexican restaurants. One has, 1,000 5-star reviews. The other one has 15. Just naturally we trust the one with 1,000 because there's more social proof and credibility around that. And so that's really what PR does, is it helps for that consideration phase in the middle, that, once people learn that you exist and they're looking you up and they're deciding, should I work with this person? Should I work with a competitor? It helps bridge the gap between them learning you exist and then actually them converting and becoming a customer in your business. So the mistake a lot of people will go and make is that they think that, marketing is the same thing as PR. But it's not. The way you evaluate marketing is essentially, I spend $1, I want to make, 3 or more. And it's an immediate ROI. But the difference is when you're building a brand or you're focusing on your public reputation, it's more of a longer term play, and you're building essentially like an asset. And you'd understand this example, probably your viewers would. Well, it's kind of the difference between investing in getting a job where you're getting immediate paychecks, or investing in the stock market or in crypto, which is something that ideally will compound over time. That's the same thing with your brands. Like if you get featured in Forbes today, is it possible someone will come in the door because they saw your article? Yes, that is possible. But what is even more valuable is the fact that you can now go and say that you're a Forbes featured entrepreneur for the rest of your life. And that holds with it a certain level of credibility and social proof that kind of distinguishes you from the crowd. And that makes it more likely that when people do learn about you, again, they're going to eventually convert and really become one of your customers.
Go through that. C, consideration was in this, contact, consideration. What was the 3rd C again?
Conversion. Yep. So contact,
conversion,
consideration, conversion. Yep, exactly.
Well done on consideration. That is a big deal. I'm learning. See, I keep learning I learn from my adult kids every day. I'm learning from Luke Hesler here, ladies and gentlemen. No, we have such a fun storied past, if you will, with that. I continue to tell people that when you're young, you don't have much to lose. So this is relatable to this podcast. Financial rebellion is, why would you not want to try something that you think you might be talented at? Why would you not go after an attempt to say, can I sell this? I'm good at this. Or people tell me I'm actually skilled in this. Why not? Because back then, you didn't think like, oh my gosh, am I going to, be living under the bridge at age 20 if I don't start this business? Or, I mean, at least that's what I've heard. Is that correct? When you're young, it's when you kind of need to take those chances.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, personally, I think it's more risky not to take the risk, when you are young, especially with the way that the world is going right now. Things are changing. And I think that the safest thing that you can do is you can become an entrepreneur. You can take your financial life into your own hands, and you can go out there and become, anti-fragile. Because again, at the end of the day, you can't control, whether your job is going to downsize. You don't know what's going to happen with AI and all these new agents that are coming out and this crazy technology. And we see all the scary narratives that are out there about job loss and all of this kind of stuff. But then the other side of that is I also believe it's never been a better time to become an entrepreneur, especially when you're young, because you have so much leverage. You think of back in the day when, starting a business, let's say even just before the internet, like it required so much liquidity. You had to, rent a space. You had to go and hire all these different employees. And you're looking at, 3 to 5 years before ever even potentially breaking a profit, spending tens of thousands in today's dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now, with the internet, you can start a business with, $1,000, and you have access to tools and technology that people in the past would only dream of. And you as a solopreneur, if that's what you are right now, especially with the technology that we have, you can move the lever. Like you have so much leverage. You can get as much done as someone with a team of 5 or 10 back in the day. And it's a fraction of the cost. And it's, again, at the end of the day, the cost of not doing business is not learning the skill. And I think the skill of understanding these new technologies, developing yourself, speaking, sales, marketing, all of that kind of stuff, these are invaluable. And so again, I think the biggest risk is frankly not taking that risk. Truly.
100% in agreement in that. So Financial Rebellion, this podcast is an element that is all about helping people not just start a business or a side hustle, but literally start making some income. And that could even be, you know what, I'm gonna do DoorDash for 15 hours a month just to invest that money, because we talk a lot about money and investing and managing it differently, right? So This is all about generating income. This is getting more income in, as you just noted earlier, to then make it work for yourself. Like you've got your quote second wealth job, letting the money starting to create money over time. So it's not hard, but you and I know the answer. I know the answer to this, but I love asking my guests. It is wide open. So what do you think is the biggest reason that is stopping from anybody to put themselves out there and take a risk?
So, I mean, the answer is fear. 100%.
Yeah.
And, but the question is like, fear of what? And I think that the fear is different for every person. I think a lot of people, for me personally, I'll just say, for me, it was a lot of fear of like what other people would think. It was the concept of what would my friends think? What would my family think? All of those types of things. But I have learned in my life that fear is an illusion. I think fear is fake. It's not real. I heard this super cheesy line that has stuck with me forever. And it says that like fear can be like one of two things, right? So it's FEAR, and it can be false evidence appearing real. Or it can be, face everything and rise. And it's a cheesy line, but I think it's so real, because I heard another kind of cheesy quote, but again, I found it to be really true. And I heard this from Bob Proctor, actually, back in the Vimma days. He said that the cave you fear to enter often holds the treasure that you seek. And I have seen that in my life. And as someone who is, I'm personally Christian.
Right. Time out real quick. Say that again. I like Bob Proctor. He's great, right? Say that. Yeah. I've not heard that one. Talk about the cave again.
Yeah, he said that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And so
that's fantastic.
It's powerful. And it's like, and I think, again, for me, like I'm personally a Christian and a believer. Everyone has their own faith, right? But for me, I think that fear is is a way that the devil holds you back from your true purpose. And the way that I've looked at that personally is I have learned to now reframe it, that whenever I feel scared of something, fearful of it, I run at that thing, because that's where the treasure is. That's where it's at. And it's difficult because our brains have been conditioned to do the opposite. Our brains are designed to keep you alive. And back in the day, fear is something, it's a survival mechanism. Before organized society, you see a bear and you're scared for your life, and you run away, and that's what keeps you alive. But now we have that same brain, but in today's day and age, and the same reaction of seeing a bear back in the day is the reaction of, what are people going to think? What are they going to go and say? And so you have to be, I think, first aware of that trap, and then you have to consciously make the decision, and this is another Bob Proctor quote that's really powerful around fear. He said that faith and fear both require believing in something that you can't see, and the choice is yours. And that's real, because you don't know if it's going to work out. You don't know if it's going to be great or it's going to be bad. Regardless, to have faith or fear both require believing in something you can't see. You don't know either way, and the choice is yours. So in the moment, you can choose to be faithful and think it's going to be good, or you can choose to be fearful, but either way, you don't know. And so just run at it. And it's something that's really helped me in my life.
I knew you were going to be a wonderful guest, and I'm already like feeling like I'm back in the day at Michigan State speaking in front of 800 people when you got on, and this is great. No, you're dropping very strong knowledge bombs, to use that, because it's true, and we all need to hear it. And I go to social media, people say, social media, the negative side to it. But if you're literally, we all know this, the algorithm's going to feed you what you're seeing and what you're listening to. But guess what? If you're focused on positive things, and you get these feeds of people telling you, from Tony Robbins coming in, I'm like, wow, all right, that gets me fired up at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, that was dumb. Now I have to go to sleep. I can't go to sleep because I'm fired up. Why did I watch that? So that's the positive side of social media, right? So it's just what we feed into our heads. Okay, right. Then we've got about 5 minutes left. God, we could talk forever. By the way, that direct sales company, there's a lot of, negative stuff that people talk about, MLMs and all that. And there's some truth to that. But no, that company from top down was a great company with great product. I would not have finished my book, Young Money, if I was not drinking their cold coffee drink called Mojo. You remember that one?
Yeah, how can I forget? It's a great one. R.I.P. Mojo.
It's the best. It was it was healthy energy. But so, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to go a little bit off topic here when it comes to because you mentioned Bitcoin and crypto. Yeah. And look, we are going to talk quickly about investing here. You're 33. You started investing. You'd wished, whatever. We all had that. I wish I would have bought so-and-so stock at $2 or Bitcoin at, $200, all that. But you're 33. When the stock market goes down, this is just like a random question for you, because you've seen it enough in the last 13 years. When stocks go down or Bitcoin goes down, how nervous do you get? Do you get nervous anymore? What have you learned?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, if you just zoom out, it goes up, like, again, I will say personally, I can't speak on the stock market. I'm not a huge stock guy, full transparency, but I am, it's just because of ignorance. I like to play where I have a competitive advantage in it, and I don't have a competitive advantage in the stock market. But I'm very deep in the crypto space, and I do have a competitive advantage in that space. And it's extremely volatile. That's just the reality of it. But also, as someone who's been watching it very closely since 2017, if you zoom out on like a daily or a monthly time frame, yeah, it goes crazy. But if you go back on a yearly time frame, and then if you go on a decade time frame, it's really just going in one direction. And so now what I've learned is, it's like, if I really want something at the store and, it goes on sale, that's a great opportunity to get more of the thing that I want, and so it's like, that's what I get the opportunities. I think it was Warren Buffett, right? He said, like, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah. I was hoping you would say that, and you did, which is things go on sale all the time. Good products, if you will, go on sale all the time.
Yep.
Okay, Ace, one more about Ace branding.
Yeah.
If someone tell us how someone can reach you to learn more about what you do, because there could be someone listening like, wait a minute, that sounds like something I need. I love what he said with the 3 C's, right?
Yeah.
Contact, consideration. I want to be considered. So how can they tell us how they can reach you?
Yeah. So you can just go to acebranding.com. Just click, there's a link there to book a meeting, and we do free consultations where we'll do like a 15-20 minute call to learn more about you and just basically see if getting featured in the media is going to be the right fit for you. And if it's not at this time, we'll give you some advice on what we do recommend that you do. And if it does, then what we'll do is we'll put together a custom plan for you to be able to go and consider. So go ahead and check it out.
Okay. And I will say this for those who are listening and watching, Luke is going to tell you exactly like it is. And if it's not a good fit, he's going to tell you exactly what to do to then get in position to use his services or to soar in another way, based on his 15, 16 years of experience, and you're only 33 because you've seen a lot already. And I just know the value you can bring a lot of people. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything else you want to share about the old famous fear and doubt, and what's the quickest thing you would say to someone when it enters the fear and doubt, which it does daily? It enters on a daily basis. What's the immediate thing you would tell somebody to do when it enters their mind about moving forward on starting a side hustle or a business? What's the first thing you tell them?
That's a really good question. I mean, the number one thing is this: whenever you start to feel fear, take action. Okay, like action is the antithesis of fear, because what you realize is that a lot of that fear is not real, and fear, it grows. It's like a weed. It's like the moment you see a weed, what do you need to do is you need to pull that weed. And it's the exact same thing with fear. Fear is a weed in your mind, and right when you experience that fear, you have to take some sort of action to prove to yourself that it isn't real. If there is no action physically that you can go out there and take, the opposite of fear is faith. And one of the best ways to practice faith, I think, is gratitude. A lot of gratitude is just in my mind. Whenever I get overwhelmed or anxious or anything like that, I just try to overwhelm it with gratitude. I just try to pour more, good into my brain, so to speak. And there's always so much to be grateful for. I mean, even when in my life, I remember when, Vimma shut down and everything seems like in my life is crumbling and all these different types of things. It's like, I'm still living in a healthy body. I have family that loves me. We live in the land of opportunity here in America. Like there's always something that you can be grateful for. And as somebody who's gone to now like 44 countries, I've seen people who literally have nothing. These people and I went to Africa. I was there for 2 weeks. They had no running water, no electricity, no anything, but they were the happiest people that I've ever met in my life. Okay. And it was really, I think, because they focused on what they did have. They weren't aware that they didn't have the nicest technology. They didn't even know the technology exists. Like they weren't comparing with the Joneses. They're just grateful to be there with their family. And the fact that they had food today, great. They didn't have food yesterday. It's an amazing thing, And so it's like, if you can train your brain, recondition it, to be grateful. I don't think that a grateful mind is a mind that is almost like it's almost like a force field for fear. I truly believe that, and I think it's the antidote to that. And so that's what I try to practice consciously. I say it out loud. I write down things that I'm grateful for, and yeah. So that's what I'd say.
Good stuff, my friend. Great seeing you after many years. And here we are on the podcast together, coming from Traverse City, Michigan, not Grand Rapids. Fantastic. Again, thank you, Luke, for joining the Financial Rebellion podcast. For those who want to, again, learn more about Ace Branding and what Luke does and just set up a quick intro call, go to acebranding.com. And Luke, thanks again for having you being on Financial Rebellion. We will see you all in the next episode of Financial Rebellion.